Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z Flashback, a series of explorations of the 150 games that make up Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Motorodeo. This was a 1990 release from Atari and one of the last games released for the Atari 2600 during its great revival between 1986 and 1990. The game is one of the most technically advanced 2600 titles, allowing players to select options from a menu rather than having to use the game select switch, and offering two-player split screen, which is a very unusual thing to see on the Atari 2600. Some modern commentators note that the Motorodeo is just a little bit too ambitious for its own good, but if nothing else it is an impressive technical accomplishment, so even if it doesn't play all that well it's still worth having a look at just to see what the Atari 2600 was capable of in its twilight years. So let's go play Motorodeo. Okay, here we are once again with Atari Flashback Classics, and today's game is Motorodeo, one of the last games for the Atari 2600. As always, let's take a look at the manual and see what it has to say. So yeah, you can definitely see this is a sort of late era Atari 2600 manual. There was sort of this black and white with a hint of red printing. Okay, here we are. You're second in the grueling competition of an all-day Motorodeo. Your customised truck, a cherry little number, speeds through the dangerous obstacle course. You quickly break through a brick wall, rumble through a muddy ditch, and jump high into the air. You grin widely as you land on a Plymouth, crushing it beneath the weight of your monster truck. Up till now, you and your opponent, Trucker Tom, have been neck and neck throughout the competition, but you've just pulled ahead. Your truck paid its dues during the early part of the competition. Daddy long legs flying around. I'm sure my cat will catch it any moment. Get away. Anyway, your truck paid its dues during the early part of the competition, but you're confident that you've got the skills needed to outmaneuver Tom as you race for the finish line. Your adrenaline pounds. You psych yourself up for the few remaining obstacles. You're only slightly ahead of Tom, but there are still a few more walls and cars to crush. Good thing you learn quickly to jump the mud, which is slowing Tom down. You rev your engine, add a burst of acceleration, and jump the last mud hole as you race for the finish line. Trucker Tom has finally met his match. Okay, so looks like we can play this in point scoring and timing modes. Move the left player difficulty switch to position A for point scoring and position B for timing. If you're in timing mode, the first player to cross the finish line wins. Okay, so you can play either as a straight race or as sort of a very early take on sort of extreme sports games where you are trying to score as many points as possible by doing tricks. So move each connected controller forward or backward to select player or computer, then select the type of vehicle, truck or blazer, equipped with either tyres or tracks. Tyres allows you to go over obstacles easier. With tracks you bounce higher, making it easier to fly over obstacles. The second selection screen offers either competition or practice. In competition, you play against another player or the computer. The competition includes all obstacles. Move the controller forward or backward to highlight easy, medium or hard and press the fire button. Or you can do practice, so you can highlight jump, platform, car crush, wall, spring, ramp, mud or spin. So you can practice the individual obstacles. Okay, so what are the actual controls? Use the fire button and controller to speed up and maneuver your truck or blazer. Press the fire button to accelerate. If you picked up a nitro unit, an N, tap the directional button forward to use the nitro for a quick burst of acceleration and a small jump. Wriggle the directional control left and right to move quickly through muddy bogs. Move the directional control left or right to control spin while you jump. Move the directional control right for clockwise and left for counterclockwise. Okay, this is fairly straightforward. So fire button to accelerate. Learn to crush the white cars. After landing on top of a car, wiggle the controller left and right to crush the car again. Okay, ram the wall to knock it down. You may have to hit the wall a few times to knock it down. The faster you drive, the faster you will knock down the wall. If you are doing a wheelie and driving fast when you hit a wall, you will knock down the wall and jump. Okay, I see what people mean by saying this is quite complex and perhaps a little bit too ambitious for the poor old Atari 2600, but well, I guess we're just going to have to give it a go. So let me just remind myself of what those difficulty switches were. So the left player difficulty switch on position A for point scoring and position B for timing. So we start on B. You may remember the easy way to remember what difficulty switch is which is A for advanced, B for beginner. So the B setting is usually easier. Alright, let's do it. I've obviously had a go at this in the past. Let's reset this. Right, Motorodeo. Player in a blazer with tracks. Oh, what have I got the difficulty setting on? That's on B at the minute, so that means that we will just be playing for time to begin with. So, okay, well let's start with a truck with tyres and see what effect that has. So I guess we just start. Let's just go for an easy competition to begin with. Alright, and off we go. So you can get some extra points if you land on those platforms. That's a collectible thing. Oh no, landed on my head. How does one do a wheelie? It kept recommending to do a wheelie for some reason, but I don't know if there's like a special control for doing that. You can sort of pull a wheelie while you do a jump fairly easily. Oh, I should have crushed that. Oh, through the mud. Smash the wall. Again, I should have wiggled my way over the top of the white car to crush it. That's a nitro, so I can use that by pushing up. And that was completely wasted. Trucker Tom is beating me on points at the moment, but I have won the race, at least. Okay, so that was reasonably straightforward. Let's have another look. Okay, so let's see what difference it makes with one of these different vehicles. So let's try the truck with tracks this time around. Now let's try the medium difficulty. Oh, using a nitro kind of sends you flying in the air straight away. I think part of the trouble I'm starting to see with this game is that it kind of suffers from the same problem that a lot of modern extreme sports suffer from, particularly for new players, which is where it's very easy to get into sort of a habit of just sitting there and bashing buttons in the hope that something good will happen. Like I think my most enduring memory in that regard was one time when a friend of mine came over. It was shortly after the game Joe Danger had come out on PlayStation Network, and he came over one night and we both got very drunk. As it was not a good time in my life, so I was getting drunk quite a lot at that time. But yeah, he came over, we both got very drunk, and we were trying to figure out Joe Danger. We were playing the two-player competitive mode and competing for scores, and it was all going quite well. But then he went off for a piss. And while he was having a piss, I determined that if you just hammer the shoulder buttons in Joe Danger in a seemingly random fashion, you will get millions of points. And so he came back from the toilet to discover that I had a score greater than his by a factor of about 300. And he was very surprised. And so, being the decent sort of chap I am, I explained how I managed to get such an astronomically high score in under such seemingly impossible circumstances. And he tried it as well. And sure enough, hammering the shoulder buttons seemingly at random while flying through the air in Joe Danger on the PlayStation 3 did indeed reward you with millions of points. And so that became known as the I'm playing Joe Danger technique. Whereby you just hold a controller in your hands and just preferably just saying I'm playing Joe Danger while you're doing it, even if you're not playing Joe Danger at the time. And I'm getting a certain amount of that feeling from this game, because I'm not 100% sure if anything I'm doing has any real meaning. Landing on that platform got me some points. Oh, I just won. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure about this. I can see what it's going for, and it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just a bit weird, and I'm not 100% sure that it really knows what it really wants to be doing. Okay, let's try a blazer this time, whatever that is. It looks like a van. I don't know. Monster trucks is an American thing. We don't do that sort of ill-cultured, unrefined sort of thing over here. We do things like horse racing and fox hunting. Much more polite. You're not allowed to do fox hunting anymore. And with good reason. Anyway, let's try blazer and tyres. Let's try the hard track. Remember, we're still just playing for time at the minute. Oops. Okay, so the Blazer actually seems a bit more stable than the monster truck, if anything. It's a little bit easier to land the right way up. Still not sure what it meant by wiggle the joystick while you're driving over one of the white cars, though. Well, that was a good clear of that wall, though. Just slow down? No, because you just go flying up in the air as soon as you hit the car, so you can't do anything about that. I don't know. Another wasted nitro. Good job. I can see this working quite well as a two-player game, as long as it's one of those games where both of you need to understand... Well, no. It's one of those games where both of you need to have a sort of passing understanding of the rules, at least. As long as that basic understanding of the rules is on an equal level. So if you play this against someone who has absolutely no idea what's going on, then that's not super fair or anything like that. But if you play this against someone who is like, okay, this game is weird and kind of fun, but also stupid, you'll have a good time. And yeah, it is nice to see a split-screen game on the Atari 2600, which I can't think of another example offhand. I'm sure there were some. Someone must have tried to do this elsewhere on the Atari 2600, but offhand I can't think of another example. Because I know when it comes to the Atari 7800, one of the big deals about that was the fact that one of its launch titles, Lucasfilm's Ball Blazer, was a split-screen game. So I don't know, maybe there wasn't. Maybe there weren't any more Atari 2600 split screen games. Someone can probably correct me in the comments, one way or the other. But yeah, I can see what this game is going for. It's not perfect. It's not brilliant. This hard course is a little bit too long to be comfortable. And not really hard. But there's some entertainment to be had here. Would it have been enough to compete against the other games that were coming out in 1990? Probably not. But if you're still playing on an Atari 2600 in 1990, you probably knew what to expect at that point, and you probably, in most cases, probably had something else on the go as well. I can imagine a lot of people still owning a 2600, sort of seeing in the shops, oh my god, they're still making games for that, and sort of picking up one of these later games and giving it a go, and sort of being quite impressed by what it offered in comparison to the later consoles. Because 1990 was late. That was sort of well past the peak of the 8-bit era and well into the 16-bit era. And for the 2600 to still be relevant at that point is just astonishing, really, when you think about it. I mean, like, we're all familiar with how long the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 stuck around, but the Atari 2600 had that beat for a very long time. And in some respects, I'd argue that it's more impressive on the Atari 2600 just because the technology is so limited and made so many advances in those initial 20 years or so. It's just incredible to think that they were still making and selling games for this platform that came out in the late 70s in 1990. I don't know what the sales figures were like, probably not great, but even so, the fact that it was considered worthwhile for them to do that is pretty remarkable in itself. Now, I do think late era 2600 games suffered a little bit from the problem that we talked about with this one, which is that they got a bit too big for their own boots and tried to do too much. You may recall a while back we looked at a basketball game called Double Dunk, which I hate that game so much with a passion. But that game doesn't work because it's trying to do too much. It's trying to be too complex a game on a system that does not have the capacity to be able to display the information you need to play it properly. That's the problem with Double Dunk. It's not that it's a fundamentally bad game. It's 2-on-2 basketball. It should be easy enough to get right. But because you have so little information on the screen in that, and it's not giving you any feedback on things like the plays that you're selecting and so on, that game really doesn't work. This game, I think, although it has its issues, most notable of which is the fact that this hard course goes on for fucking ever. This is not a bad game. You can see what this is going for, and it sort of achieves it. Are there lots of things it could do better? Yes, absolutely. There are lots of things that came out before it that probably do what this is doing better. But you have to remember, this game was running on the Atari 2600. and as such is worthy of a certain amount of respect. I win, even though I got fewer points. Only just, though. Only just. Alright, let's have one race based on points. So left difficulty to A. And then I will take the Blazer with tracks, and the computer will have Blazer with tracks, so it's theoretically a nice even playing field. And easy. Oh! No, they got it the wrong way round in the manual. Because we were playing for points before, and now we're playing for time. I thought that was a bit weird that they say you're playing for time and there was no timer on the screen. But no, they got that the wrong way round in the manual. Either that or I can't read properly. One or the other, both equally possible. But even so. So what we're doing now is all about just getting through the course as quickly as possible and sod the points. Because they don't matter. Because they're not even visible. So forget the platforms, just drive. Oh, I think we're pretty much at the exact same point on the course. I am going slightly faster. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. And this being the easy course, this race shouldn't take too long. Boing! Oops. I think, if anything, this game might work better as a racing game. Because it's not about grinding those obstacles for points then, it's about being able to navigate them efficiently. And being able to like knock down the walls efficiently and that sort of thing. Oh, come on, come on, come on! I win! By a second. Yeah, I prefer playing that based on time. I'm just gonna check that they have got that wrong. So left difficulty is in the A position right there. You can see that. You can see that, right? If I look back at the manual now, move the left player setting switch on the game system to position A for point scoring and position B for timing. Yeah, so they got that the wrong way round in the manual, which is not unusual for this era. Just makes me laugh when it happens. But anyway, yeah, that's Motorodeo, copyright 1990, Atari Axlon. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's someone who worked on it or something like that. By this point, Atari was actually letting people put their names on things, so that may well have been like a programmer's name or something. Don't quote me on that though. Anyway, yeah, interesting to see a very late era Atari 2600 game and what that meant. And there's some interesting stuff going on in this. I mean, just thinking about it, I didn't mention this before, but look at this. There's like a demo mode running. That's not something you saw in a lot of 2600 games. They might have an attracts mode with like colour cycling and stuff like that, but to see an actual demo mode of gameplay going on, that's very unusual. So yeah, this is kind of a fascinating game in a lot of ways. It's not an amazing game. It's not something I see myself returning to very frequently, but it's worth a look as an interesting curiosity, if nothing else. Yeah, so I'm glad I checked that out. But for now, I think that's enough of that. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.